welcome to this training video. Today we're going to talk about utilities. You know, most of us take our utilities for granted. A nice hot shower in the morning, cooking a hot meal, turning up the heat when it's cold outside, and even something as simple as turning on a light. But for many of our clients, life is just one disconnect notice or an empty fuel tank away from living in the darkness and or cold. And this is why we have the Homeless Prevention Program's Utility Assistance. So our McRib family has come to us to request some utility assistance, and today they've received an electric disconnect, and we would like to see if we can help them. Here we are at the main menu. Let's go to the McRib family. Pull up the household, and of course, as always, you want to make sure that all of the information that we have about the household is still current. And it doesn't hurt to have the head of household that is there with you to just look at the information and make sure that it still looks current and accurate. Okay, once we've done that, then we just go on to view and add transactions. And now that we're familiar with the household transaction form, we can see that there's a HPP that was done and an emergency food pantry. And of course, here are the add transaction buttons up here. Now, we're going to be adding a homeless prevention program transaction, so obviously we're going to press that. Now you'll remember from when we did the rent, our first order of business is to fill in the intake information, and I'm going to do that, and then we'll just quickly go over the information so that we don't go step by step. If you still have major questions about how to fill in the intake report, I'd recommend that you look at video number 4, which covers that whole process. Okay, so I've filled in all of the information on the intake form. And let's start up at the top. The HPP type is utility metered. And you can see there is a utility non-metered option here too. And we're going to talk about the difference between those in just a minute. But you can also see that I've also put in from the bill that the McRibs had brought in, it clearly looks like we'd be assisting with a month that was $175. So I have plugged that in, and in this case we're looking at the United Way grant, and I've allocated it for $175. But back at the intake page, so the utility has been designated. Clearly the case is open and pending. I've put in a brief description of the crisis. I said due to unanticipated expenses, a major car repair, and emergency dental work, the McRibs have gotten behind in their electric utility payments, approximately 2 months behind, and have received a disconnect notice. They're not receiving TANF assistance in their household. They received fuel assistance already, and I put here that they've not received assistance within the last 12 months. In truth, our records will show that they did receive assistance within the last 12 months. But for training purposes, we're just going to kind of overlook that in this case, and we've put in that they did not receive it. All right, so they went to the city of Portsmouth to get assistance, talked to Ellen Tully, and they applied for assistance on the 10th of April here, and they applied for utility assistance, as you can see. And we checked off that we confirmed this with Ellen Tully on the 11th, and the outcome was that the city of Portsmouth denied assistance to the household based on the household having adequate income for allowable expenses. That just simply means that some of these expenses that they had, like the major car repair, would not be an expense that welfare department is or municipality is required to address as an allowable expense. So they just look at the household's monthly income and say, well, they had enough income to pay their rent and their utilities, but they chose to use the money for other purposes. So the municipality in these cases is free to deny assistance. And now I think it'd be good if we just talked quickly about the metered versus non-metered utilities. Generally speaking, utilities fall into two basic groups: metered utilities and non-metered utilities. Metered utilities generally include electricity and natural gas, and both of these utilities are regulated by the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. And because they are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, there are certain protections that come in effect for consumers who use those utilities. Non-metered utilities would include all deliverable kinds of utilities such as oil, propane, kerosene, and even firewood. It would also include sewer bills. Because some of our funding sources make a clear distinction between metered and non-metered utilities, it's important that we be able to identify which is which. And here we are back with the McRib family, and we're on the intake page. I wanted to point out that I failed to mention that in the follow-up action, given that the city of Portsmouth was not going to be able to help the household, I put in a note that we would apply to Women Aid of Portsmouth to see if they can assist with one of the months of the arrearage. Okay, so that takes care of that. The next step would be to make sure that you have a release of information put together so that you can speak with a Public Service of New Hampshire. And it looks like this. It has the individual's name and gives Public Service of New Hampshire permission to talk to us about any and all issues that are related to the arrearage and the disconnection. Okay. After we've done that, then we go right to the utility worksheet. And right at the top, it asks utility being requested, and it's electric. Is the utility in your name? And that would be the head of household, and yes, it is. Now it asks for, under metered utilities, the name that appears on the account, which is sometimes known as the customer of record, or the COR, and that would be Ronald. Last name McRib. And it asks for the account number, which is 5634586 Okay, and the type of metered utility is electric. And the status of the metered utility, it is not disconnected, but has received a disconnection notice. And it is not heat. And these questions down here are for non-metered utilities. In other words, deliverable types of fuel. So now the next step will be to create the utility worksheet. And we do that by pressing on this icon here. And it brings up, you can see this Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes it's easier to expand it so you can see everything. All right, so obviously we're going to be needing to look at the bill from public service so that we can build in the amounts owed and construct the whole arrearage so that it matches the documents from public service. And I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back. So before we start entering information on the utility worksheet, we should take a quick look at the disconnect notice to get the correct numbers to work with. As you can see, the total amount owed from the bill here is $483.50, and $336 is overdue. That $336 is the amount that we're going to need to work with here today. Okay, so here we are. We've filled in the arrearage, and up at the top you'll see it always asks for total owed. This is not just the disconnect amount, but the total bill, and we've filled that in, $483.50. Amount needed to avert disconnect. That's usually the 60 days old or over the 60 days amount, and in this case it amounted to $336. Now we've built in the billing history part. The last 3 months are in question, and I always start at the most current month. So we did March 1st to March 31st at $147.50, you can see, and then February, and then January. Now you can see it calculates the amount down here, and everything reconciles perfectly. This is a check over here to make sure that things are reconciling correctly. So now up here, the thing that is missing says total assistance. That's because we've not entered the amounts in here yet. Okay, so the amounts that are in question that for assistance, Women Aid of Portsmouth agreed to do $161, and we can enter that right in here. And we're looking to do $175. Now once that's entered, you can see that this reconciles also with the amount needed to avert the crisis. So it balances out all the way around, and we are essentially ready to make a commitment now to public service. This utility report again shows you the arrearage and all the pertinent information that you need for reporting